Just waiting for it to say that I'm connected, and it looks like I am. Let me take these headphones off. How's everybody doing today? I got a case of the Mondays. I have like brain fog today for absolutely no reason. I don't know why. Um, Brad, how you doing? I see you said Richard Allen is surely elusive. A lot of people right now think that it's not that he's elusive. It's just that they think that the police kind of overlooked something they should have spotted right away in the first place. So um, that's certainly uh, a divisive topic among some people studying this case. Hello, D. How are you? I want to put something out there right before I start this live stream today, and that is the fact that a lot of times when I'm commenting on my page after I've made videos like I did the other night, a lot of people will say they said or heard something, and I was talking about the Becky Patty uh, photographs that Richard Allen gave her for free at the CVS pharmacy, which is something in a press conference, an interview Becky Patty actually confirmed happened. And a lot of people were telling me that those were photos from the funeral. Other people were saying they were of the funeral. And just so you know, when I ask people to post proof about things like that, it's not because I'm trying to pick on you or I'm not trying to say that you're wrong or that you're lying. So don't think that ever. It's more me being a journalist for a living like I am. I really, really didn't get to this point in life by just assuming things. So I always try to make sure that whenever possible, if you guys have heard something or have information that you think I may not be aware of, otherwise, if you're able to post ever video links to those things or any sort of link to an article, something that's reputable instead of just rumors on the internet, I really do always appreciate that because that's what we're trying to get at here, obviously, are the facts. And it's so easy to just take something for granted as fact in this case that isn't, that could throw the entire, investigation you have going on or sleuthing or what have you off a little bit. And I really try to avoid that as much as possible. So let's see. I see we have some people in the chat here. Hello to everybody. Hello, Slim Convo, support with stuff. Hello, Lipsa Morrissey. Good to see you again. Raggedy Susan. Yeah, there's no shame in asking for verification. That's a sign of sound reasons. Excuse me. Agreed. Also, I have an air filter that I keep on in my house just because, everything's getting more polluted these days. And I spent like $300 on an air filter. So if that ever gets noisy or bothers anybody, let me know. I can always shut that off too. I know sometimes I hear it a little bit in the background when I make live videos and stuff. Anyway, on to business here. Eric Martin, good afternoon from Pittsburgh. Me and my kid have been wanting to visit Pittsburgh. We visited like 16 states, and he keeps saying, Dad, let's go to Ohio for a couple of days because I haven't been to Ohio. I still have yet to take him to D.C. So Pittsburgh is another one. He says he wants to detour there if we go out to D.C. So I'm looking forward to visiting Pittsburgh for the first time, and Cincinnati, even though I've traveled quite a bit in my life. What I want to discuss today, and it's the title of the video here, who is the real Richard Allen? And the reason I'm asking that is because when I'm studying last night, I reminded myself of this, and I don't think this pops up on here because I don't have editing equipment, but there's a article about deputies responding to Richard Allen's home in 2015 to, quote, keep the peace. This is a Fox News story. It's real easy to Google. I can probably even copy and paste it in the link here so some of you see what I'm talking about, which is what I'm going to do right now. There we go. That's what I'm reading right now. And it says the Carroll County Sheriff's Office confirmed that deputies were sent to Delphi murder suspect Richard Allen's home in 2015 for a, quote, domestic incident. The sheriff's office was dispatched just after 3:30 in the morning on June 18th, 2015, so about a year and a half before the murders, give or take a month or two, according to records obtained by Fox 59. The sheriff said Allen was allegedly drunk and his wife took him to a Lafayette area hospital for a medical evaluation. Now, I don't know if that's where the rumors of him going to a psych ward that are unconfirmed or unfounded that we know of, come from, but that's floating around there all over the place. Maybe it's just, people hear medical evaluation and immediately think, oh, he's having his head examined. Well, no, not necessarily. Maybe he was just drunk out of his mind. And, his wife was obviously worried enough to take him to a hospital. And when it gets to that level, that's some problem drinking. And we've seen lots of videos circulating now of Alan being at bars in the area, from people's Facebook pages, from videos that have popped up. And one thing's become very obvious to me. It's that, there's two sides of Richard Allen, it seems like, from what I've studied so far. There's the Richard Allen that works at CVS Pharmacy. Nobody ever suspected a thing of him. Nobody, nice, quiet, soft-spoken sort of guy, that kind of thing. And you see a lot of that when people describe him, and people who even knew him growing up, they said they never would have suspected things like that. I think they interviewed, maybe even in this article, I think was it Drew Yoder? Or David Yoder, I apologize. Richard Allen grew up in the small town of Mexico, about 30 miles from Delphi. Several people who knew him said all of them told us they would never have suspected him. People change over the years, and I haven't seen Ricky for a long time, said David Yoder. Yoder lived across the street from Allen when he lived in Mexico and grew up with his dad. So Allen previously lived in Mexico, not the country, for those of you wondering. There's an actual town in Indiana, just to clarify, that is called Mexico. And you can pull that up on a map, and it's easy to find and see how far away it is from Delphi. It's not too far. Anyhow, so there's that side of Rick Allen who nobody suspects, but then we see this other side of him that clearly is somebody who has some sort of a drinking issue. And my heart goes out to anybody who, has a family member who suffers with this. Thankfully, I had some fun in my 20s. We all do. But I've never had that drinking gene or that drinking issue. And I'm grateful every day for it, because I've seen alcohol just absolutely ruin people's lives. I'm not going to get preachy on here, but the point is, Rick Allen clearly has some sort of either internalized pain or something that he's trying to cover up with that kind of drinking and that level of drinking, to where his wife has to take him to the hospital. And so you start to wonder, what's he hiding from? What's he trying to block or numb the pain from that's going on in his life? And when a psychologist eventually evaluates him, if they're ever able to, I'd be really, really curious to know. And again, he's innocent until proven guilty, but I'd be real curious to know exactly what it was that was going on in his life that led him down that path. Because again, I'm seeing this duality in Richard Allen. I'm seeing a person who gives this public persona. He's just a member of the community fitting in. But it seems like you go back to 2015, and we know that he's still in bars again from videos that have surfaced from 2019 and later. So this is a pattern of drinking that's gone on for at least 4 or 5 years, excessively or more, that we know of. And again, that doesn't make somebody guilty of a crime, obviously, like double homicide of 2 girls. But it's just another one of those things where my radar kind of goes off, to where it's like, okay, we're starting to get a little bit more of a picture of, more about this guy's life, this guy's inner workings, things that are really going on in his life, and not just what the public sees from day to day when he's out working, amongst us. So let me take a look at a few of the comments here that people have been leaving. That my eyesight's getting a little bit worse as I get older. Michelle Evans says hi from and I don't want to assume that I can see what flag that is that you just posted and be wrong and offend somebody. I don't even know where I put my reading glasses. Again, they told me that I have 20/20 vision still, but my close-up vision and small print, it's getting there from looking at all these screens all these years. I think that's England or Australia. It's still hard to tell. I apologize, Michelle. Maybe you could let me know. Come to Ohio. We are good folks. Go Reds. Says support with Stefa. Yeah, I'm a big baseball fan. baseball trophies that I still keep up in this little computer entertainment room that sometimes I let my kid come in here and play games on the TV and stuff. So in case you're wondering why you see the old Super Mario and Nintendo stuff up there and stuff like that. Let's see, Pittsburgh. Reading some more comments. Hello from Boston. Boston's another place where I haven't gone. I haven't been to the East Coast a lot, but I've been to, Florida, Georgia, things like that down there. Tennessee, I lived in very briefly as a kid. Indiana, the Midwest, Washington State, California, just places like that, but not a lot of East Coast, other than in 8th grade when I went to Washington, D.C. and Virginia and saw Ford's Theater. If you're ever out that way, make sure you stop the Ford's Theater. It's pretty surreal going in that place and seeing the place where Lincoln got zapped. Like, crazy to be standing right in front of that kind of history. Brad Barfield says, my vision started getting challenged around 46 years old, 5+ years later. You don't see anything without readers. Yeah, and it's addictive too. Once you start using them to see things easier, you want to keep them on all the time. And that's probably messing with my vision too. But, my grandma's like, I have a grandmother that's still alive that's like 91 years old now. She had LASIK surgery even in her 80s, and it worked. Like, it just blows my mind that they have technology that can fix people's vision at that age. It was like a miracle to her. Haven't seen her put glasses on again since, and unreal. Let's see, Shelby Harriel, High Unsolved. Anyway, what do you all think? There's obviously a lot of circumstantial evidence that Richard Allen is Bridge Guy. I think that the forensic ballistics evidence they have, I think people are going to be surprised when this goes to court, just how big the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms database is. And from what I understand, they're actually pre-firing some of these weapons before they're selling them in order to keep those markings in a database so that they can, it's getting real sophisticated now, everybody. Like, I don't know, I obviously can't confirm that Allen's weapon was ever fired by people before it was sold so they could have that kind of evidence in the database. But just when I started studying and digging into the ballistic stuff, I think that evidence has come a long way in a very short amount of time. So I'm real interested to learn more. And I'm no expert by this in this by any means, but I'm real interested to learn more about the technology and the markings, because I know general things about it based on what I've studied, but I'd really like to know how deep that goes. Because if they're starting to keep evidence before weapons are even sold to the public of what those specific markings look like, just imagine the crimes that they're going to be able to help solve with technology like that. If when you own a weapon, you're like, well, I better not fire this in any sort of a crime because they're going to be able to match it to me. Every single day, it's mind blowing to me that we've gone from like the 1800s where people were driving around with horses and carts, and here we are capturing HD video and 4K video out of thin air. It blows my mind. It really does, in less than a century. So, who knows what we're going to know or be able to solve forensically in the next 5-10 years. Nobody ever thought that reverse DNA technology would ever be used in genealogy, yet here we are. And boy, wouldn't it be something, even though it's not in the affidavit, if we come to find out that there is some sort of DNA in this case that was reverse engineered in that manner. We have no reason to believe that that's the case based on the affidavit itself. But again, they don't have to put everything in the affidavit to get this case to trial. And I guarantee you, there's a lot that the prosecution has that really the public has no idea about right now. I would put $100 on it. I literally would just slap down a $100 bill and say, look, I'll bet you they have this, this, and this. And I think people are going to be surprised. I really, really do. Because usually, well, Anyway, I've made my point. Hello from New York. How do you pronounce that? Poughkeepsie, Poughkeepsie, New York. I hope that I pronounced that right. I caught a live, didn't get a reminder. Well, that stinks. Well, what's going on with that, YouTube? Give the guy a reminder. I was trying to stop by. I had LASIK sitting in a chair, and Nitty Gritty says, I'm curious if they will be able to match any hairs or fibers to Richard Allen. That's something I got money that they did. They have. And that's because in the probable cause affidavit for Richard Allen's arrest, well, actually, let me take a step back. In the Ron Logan search warrant affidavit, the FBI agent that wrote that affidavit specifically mentions that when they search Logan's home, that they would be looking potentially for animal hairs. And it's law that you have to put, for it to be admissible as evidence, and you have to be able to put what you're looking for in that search warrant in general. And there's real specific reasons for this legally that I won't go into, but you want to be as detailed as possible telling investigators what you're looking for, which is why, they said in the Ron Logan search warrant, they're looking for firearms. Lo and behold, obviously they had that bullet that we know about. And that warrant also mentioned potential animal hair. So we know, based on things that I've read and these warrants, these affidavits, they were looking for animal hair. And I guarantee you they were looking for animal hair, or took animal hair samples from Richard Allen's home when they searched his home. I've been told he has cats. I haven't confirmed that, but there are pets in his house, from what I understand. At the very least, cats, or a cat. I know he has a cat statue that's on his front of his property, and neighbors have said investigators were digging either at or near the fire pits. They were, bringing things out of the home. So again, I'm very, very 99% confident that they've at least tried to match hairs or fibers they found at the scene. And that's the other thing. The fiber transfer is a very, very, very interesting thing to study. Who knows? Maybe somehow there's some fibers that transferred over from him touching them or something, that they match to something. There's a million infinite possibilities and ways they can get evidence against you right now, I guess, is my bigger point. Let's see, Ruckus Podcast, or Ruckus Rocks. Richard Allen is bridge guy. I'm curious as to how he's connected to Keegan Klein. I doubt it was a random event that he was on the bridge that day and time. And like I said in my last live stream, there's an old saying, there are no coincidences. And we can't prove, obviously, that the two are connected right here. But that circumstantial evidence there, the fact that somebody would be catfishing them the morning of or the night before or both, whether it's Snapchat, Instagram, no matter what app it is, and we know that they're taking a look at a lot of apps, because I got the warrants even state and the probable cause, they all talk about, when it comes to Keegan Klein anyway, they talk about how he was using all these different devices and 3 or 4 different social media apps. So he was catfishing girls on a lot of different apps. It wasn't just one. So there may be, things on other apps that have gone on that they've investigated that we don't know about. I'm sure there is. So when all this goes to trial, again, who knows when that's going to be, because I'm telling you, there is a mountain of evidence. And the fact that the defense requested public funding in order to get experts to defend Richard Allen on this case, it just goes to show you the volumes and volumes of evidence they're going to have to go through and vet and sift through and, interview people about. It's going to be very, very time consuming. I would be shocked, and this is my personal opinion based on my experience, I would be shocked if this case went to trial any sooner than 6 months from now, if not another year. And that's going to be tough for a lot of us who want answers, because I think answers in this case are going to come pretty slowly before trial, unless there's some sort of bombshell information or another arrest made in this case, which is a possibility, or arrests before trial. There's not going to be a lot of new information that's spilling out because of this gag order the judge signed. Excuse me. What do you think law enforcement has for evidence? Well, let's focus on what we know that they have for evidence. One, they have the alleged ballistic information. Two, they have an interview with a police officer and subsequent interview right prior to Richard Allen's arrest last fall, that he was out there that day, that he was on the bridge during the same 2-hour time frame. We have him admitting he parked at the old CPS building to officers. So those are 4 pieces of evidence right there. We have the Hoosier Harbor Store camera. We don't know if he's captured on that. We know vehicles and people who allegedly spotted him bloody and muddy were seen on that Hoosier Harbor Store camera driving. So if they're on camera driving near there, it's entirely possible that they have Richard Allen or someone matching bridge guy's description walking to their vehicle, according to the camera. One of the witnesses saw him at 3:57 p.m. on CR 300 North, and that was at the time that the Hoosier Harbor Store camera captured that eyewitness's vehicle driving, I think they call it either west or northbound there, toward the CPS building. So if they capture that car on video, like, I tend to believe if that car's on video and saw him, there's no way that the Harbor Store can't have him on camera also. And who knows if he's demasked by then. I don't know how far away the camera is to where it's close enough to where can they zoom in. Maybe that's a bigger piece of evidence than we think. We have alleged eyewitnesses saying that they have descriptions. Again, we have the man in black thing. We don't know if that's somebody that eyewitness misremembered or if there was an actual man in black. Just one of those things that muddies the waters a little bit. We have audio evidence of this person saying guys down the hill. So that's evidence also. Again, I'm focusing on things that we know. We know that one of the girls' shoes was found. From what I understand, it's pretty confirmed that they found either some of the girls' clothing or garments in the water. We know from the affidavit that they asked for, or maybe it wasn't the affidavit. I don't know if it was what. I get some of these things confused sometimes when I'm looking over so many of them. But we know that, I know what it is, based on there's radio transcripts and police radio that people have on audio that they've recorded that have the police, and there's transcripts of it, the police asked for, and I quote, multiple evidence bags the morning when they found the girls right after. And they were on the radio asking for additional evidence bags. So, who knows what they were bagging up out there? Probably a whole bunch of things. So again, those are in general the things that we know. We know that the offender on the bridge had a handgun. Those are the kinds of general facts that we know. Personally, I think they probably compared animal or fiber evidence. Who knows if he was smoking at the crime scene? Again, this is speculation. He could have been crazy enough to leave a cigarette butt. I don't know why he would do that, but maybe he smoked when he walked along the property. One of the things that the investigator said right in the beginning was this was a, quote, massive crime scene, which tells me that, that there's other evidence they found in a big range, not just where the girls were found. And I think that's one of the reasons they're having trouble figuring out or piecing all of this together, whether, if there's other people involved potentially, is it is such a big crime scene, and, it's rural, and it's not always Again, they probably should have had Richard Allen early on. I'm not going to get down on the police. And I know there's police officers that watch my channel, current, former ones. Let me just unequivocally state, you have my utmost respect and support. Anybody who's out there putting their lives at risk for the public day after day, um, I appreciate that a ton, because just like any other line, I always tell people, there's always going to be people in every walk of life that are bad or corrupt or bad people, and you just got to root those people out. But for the most part, police officers are in it for the right reasons. So thank you to all of you who've chosen that. Let me catch up on some of these. It's the UK Unsolved. Thank you, Michelle. Again, that I know what the UK flag looks like. I took honors history way back, long ago in high school. So it just, the icons are so small. Let's see. My dad had a friend when I was a kid who was the most quiet, hardworking man most of the time until he had a drink. Then, my God, he was violent, Michelle Evans said. His poor wife took a battering. Yeah, there's some alcoholism that ran in my family, and that train didn't hit me, thank goodness. Yeah, I had fun in my 20s, but I'd always feel like crap the next day, and just, I'm like, why do that to yourself? There's other ways to have a good time that don't involve making yourself feel like crap for the next 24 hours afterwards. And my own cousin, it's just sad where it leads. I won't tell you personal stories here. What else we have? A good portion of evidence has been collected since 2020 when Kagan was arrested. Things really picked up since the day Kagan was signed out of jail and transferred into ISP custody for a day. About that, people talk about how they transferred Kagan Klein from custody. We know that because there's documents of it and evidence of it in court records. But it's interesting because my source that was incarcerated with Kagan Klein, that talked to me extensively, told me that when that happened, Kagan told him and other inmates that he was being transferred for, and I quote, this is a direct quote, medical reasons. Now, I'm not saying that's true, okay? That's just what my source tells me that Kagan told him and others when he was in jail with him. Keep that in mind. Now, that could very well be a cover story, or what investigators or somebody told Kagan to tell them, so that they didn't know why he was really being transferred. Okay, so keep that in mind as well. And I just want to put that out there because that's information that I don't think other channels have, that I cultivated myself personally as a journalist, talking to this source that was in jail with him for a long time and showed me drawings. Some of you have seen that video. I took it down because it was kind of a very divisive, controversial video. I didn't want to jeopardize, major investigative points at the time. But just in general, that's what happened. And we all know Klein is a liar. You don't want to trust everything people say, but sometimes liars tell the truth too. And I don't want to go down the whole Keegan Klein rabbit hole today. I've made it clear what I think about that. And it seems really coincidental that those girls would be catfished within like a 24-hour period of this crime happening. I find that hard to believe that's a coincidence. Is it possible? Yes. But as they said, like a couple days after the investigation, like the gentleman said in the press conference, is it likely, that it was a random event? No. Even in the beginning, I have a video way back from like a year ago on my page where they're talking about that, and they said they didn't think it was likely this was a random event, word for word, on video. So what else do we have here? 49 watching, only 14 likes. Well, thank you. I appreciate the support there, Ruckus. What proves that Richard Allen is really the BG? Well, again, we have to wait until we go to trial for that. I kind of just discussed that a few minutes ago. There's a lot of circumstantial evidence against him. There's ballistic evidence, plus there's evidence that I guarantee you they found when they searched his property that we don't know about. There's quite possibly fibers or animal hairs based on things we've seen in the probable cause affidavit, his arrest warrants, things like that. So, there's eyewitnesses. They have some sort of cell phone data. who knows? They might even have him, like I stated before, on the Hoosier Harbor Store camera without a mask on. So uh, let's just say that I think they have more than that they're letting on. There are many men that look like the BG. Well, I don't know how you know that because, well, yeah, that look like the picture of them. I mean, it's Indiana, just kind of a stout, portly kind of body. But, anybody who says that they were able to discern anything from enhancing those videos is just, they're full of it. Like, I'm sorry, they are. I couldn't take a look at that zoomed in 10, 15 times and tell you what Bridge Guy's face looked like. You get general outlines and blurs, but the video quality was literally so low that, I had people sending me crazy emails in my inbox saying, look, this is Bridge Guy's real face and stuff like that. And, in retrospect, none of those look like Richard Allen. I mean, if people had enhancements that were that great in the first place, they would have identified the guy from doing this supposed sleuth photographic work or blowing up Bridge Guy's face. I mean, one of the witnesses said that his face was covered. So, and that's in the affidavit too. So we have an actual witness saying that he had a face covering on at least at some point when he was seen. So anybody saying that they can see his face when video of that is blown up, I call BS. I just do. If the FBI had facial recognition technology that was able to identify him from that, we wouldn't be sitting here 6 years later. I mean, you got to critically think about these things. So it's just a poor quality video, yet ironically, Libby's heroic actions taking that video are, I think, part of the reason why he's under arrest right now, because he puts himself out there. He says he's wearing the same clothing. And I think that's why he came forward in the first place. This is my personal opinion. I think he came forward in the first place because he knew that the police released a photograph of him and it was just a grainy photograph. And he probably thought, well, somebody has a picture of me walking on the bridge. That doesn't mean that I'm guilty. But he didn't know that they also had video that she took. And Libby's a hero for that. From, as I've stated, from beyond the grave, that may be one of the most damning pieces of evidence in this when push comes to shove, and the prosecution is going to try and make the case to you and probably do a pretty good job of proving to you when it goes to trial that the person wearing that outfit on the bridge that she captured on the phone is Richard Allen. And I think the case they're going to make is going to be a lot stronger than you think when they put all of the evidence, not just what we know, but all of it in front of you. That's my personal opinion. Keegan Kline ratted Rick out for a box of Twinkies. That's the thing that keeps me up at night. Is this some sort of a sick child ring or some ugh? And these things are out there. These people are out there. We know because we know how many people Keegan claimed he was, he claimed he was using a Dropbox, and that, I don't go down the whole dark web rabbit hole and these sinister things too much because I'm not an investigator. There's some things that I kind of don't want to know about, to be honest. But, we know there's child trafficking that goes on in this country. We know that there's the Club of Delphi that talked about, tying women up in abusive things. Stuff like this is going on all across America. And to the FBI agents and the other people or anybody like that watching this that are out there capturing people that are preying on children like this, tip of the cap to you, because that's not hard work to have to see some of those things and do some of those things and hunt people like this down. So again, hats off to people who are making that a career path in their life right now. I see Eric Martin cracking some jokes there. Boy. Yeah. Keegan Kline did have quite the commissary going. We've confirmed that while in jail. So law enforcement has stated the younger guy sketch is representative of the face of the man on the bridge. I find it weird they would use the word representative. I think that's just kind of the way they were talking, because Doug Carter has also said when Bridge Guy was identified, ultimately, he personally felt that it would, quote, be a combination of the two sketches. And I've seen people comparing and combining the two sketches, and boy, again, a lot of people look like some of these sketches that are in Indiana, but when you put the two together, especially, it sure looks like that Rick Allen goatee picture a ton. So, and again, he may have had his face uncovered part of the time. He may have had it covered other parts of the time. Because like I stated before, there is a witness that claims that when she encountered him, that his face was either fully or partially covered. So that's interesting. What else do we have? The list of those who admitted they were there that day: Kelsey, Derek German, Keegan and Tony, the girls, and a couple witnesses. That's all we know. Well, we know there's like 3 witnesses. There's flannel shirt guy. That's 4. Kelsey just dropped him off. She wasn't out there walking. Derek, he went out and kind of walked and looked around after he got there when he found that, they weren't answering their phone. I don't know. There's 7 or 8 people that we know of. And flannel shirt guy said he saw a couple, quote, under the bridge. That's confirmed by Becky Patty. So that's potentially a couple more people. There's probably at least 9 or 10 people in that 2-hour span that we know of. That's just that we know of, that were out there that day. And then, Richard Allen puts himself out there. So it's not like it was some deserted place that day. There were some people out there during that time frame. We had people that showed up a little bit after that, but it's not just 1 or 2 people that were out there. They're a little more than that. And again, anybody out here throwing shade at Kelsey or saying that she's involved, please go somewhere else and argue with people about that. I'm not going to do it. I'm not re-victimizing family members on my page. What else do we have? Richard Allen's wife graduated with Tony Klein. Makes one think. It does make one think, but obviously you don't want to just automatically assume that means anything either and just blindside some woman who didn't know her husband was doing this. Everybody's going to say, well, I don't see how the person couldn't know that. I don't know how a family member couldn't have identified him. Never underestimate the power of denial. When you've lived your whole life with somebody and you've never seen them do something like that, you're very capable of trying, and that's the human brain doing this. It's natural. Your brain tries to rationalize the fact, okay, this is why my loved one wouldn't do this, or this is why my loved one would never behave in this manner. And you just keep denial. Denial is a huge thing in this world when it comes to people not seeing the forest through the trees through the forest, whatever metaphor you want to use. Richard Allen is the main witness against himself, OT says. This is great. From the circumstantial evidence we know, and I don't want to laugh at that because this is not a funny situation, but I'm kind of chuckling at the fact that you're right. He kind of is his own main witness against himself at this point, I think, by putting himself out there that day and thinking that he was going to outsmart the police and stay a step ahead of them and say, yeah, I was out there that day, but it wasn't me, not realizing that Libby heroically captured him on film, or that he might be on the Hoosier Harbor Store camera, or his vehicle might be, or any of a number of other things that took place that day that they have evidence about. Kelsey is a saint, Bud Bundy says. When you're a teenager, can you go back and think to when you were a teenager, okay? Think about when you were 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. If something like this had happened to you, and you're thrust in the spotlight with cameras in your face all day on national TV, your closest friend, who's your sister, has just died in a horrific death. Every time you turn on the TV, every time you go through a store in town, there's pictures of this guy, 5, 6 years. How in the hell do you think that would make you feel as a teenager? That would probably really hit you hard, wouldn't it? You might misremember a few things even. You might have an inconsistent story just because you want to psychologically black out some of the crap that happened that day. The human brain does that, okay? It'll react to trauma in really, really interesting ways to prevent you from having trauma just sitting there in your forefront of your mind all the time. So when I say people should go easy on Kelsey, I mean it, because it's really, really powerful that in the midst of all this, she went and got a degree from, I believe, like Purdue University to study criminology and things like that so that she could help solve cases someday and bring closure to other families so they don't have to go through the same thing that her and her family have gone through. And again, it makes me emotional just to even think about that. I mean, I can't imagine people who are on here still accusing her of things. It makes me sick to my stomach. I don't even want to keep talking about it. Isn't Tony Klein several years older than Richard Allen's wife? Let's see. I'm not saying Richard Allen's wife is involved. Just the fact that she graduated with Tony Klein does give some type of connection potentially. Potentially, and again, I agree that's what investigators are there for. They're the ones who dig through all those potential connections. So thank you for pointing that out. Lipsa Morrissey, I find Kelsey's courage inspirational, as do I. Yeah, but Bunny, I can't believe that she didn't figure it out at all. Or you know, who knows? Maybe she did. Again, she's publicly stated that she's staying by Richard Allen's side through this. But what if that's a ruse too? What if she's the one who came forward with some information? I mean, you just never know. I'm not saying she did. But when you're critically thinking, and there's a possibility out there that something could be the case, you don't want to ever rule it out until you can disprove it either. Okay, what else do we have? It's 10:04. Again, thank you to all the people who've hit the like button on this, who are watching. I said I'd probably go a half hour, 45 minutes to an hour. We're at like 41 minutes right now. Just in the comments before I go here shortly, what do you think of Richard Allen's problem drinking? Do you think that, that's a sign that there's a lot more going on in his life that he's trying to cover up or hide from or things like that? Because again, as I started off in this video talking about, we know that he went to the hospital, was taken to the hospital in 2015 by his wife after a night of heavy drinking to be evaluated. And I'm not saying psychologically or a psych ward like some people are, but he was taken by her to the hospital. So whatever was going on that night with his drinking was serious enough to merit a trip to at least the emergency room. Bud Bundy, what a great point. She may be a surprise witness. You just never know. It's not unprecedented in cases. There's a lot of mafia cases too out there where somebody pretends to be on somebody's side, then it goes to trial and it's like, surprise, I'm a witness. Anyway, I just realized that the Unsolved looks like the Lordan Arts dude. Do I even want to go and Google that? I don't know. I used to have people tell me I looked like the actor Edward Norton. And when I put pictures side by side, I see it a little bit, but whatever. Addiction usually means the person has a history of trauma. Maybe. I know a lot of people, though, that, have got into drinking or, drugs or things like that had no intention of it. There's people out there that I know that played sports that had opiate addiction because the doctor said, here, take these for your pain, so you don't hurt anymore. And next thing you know, they're hooked on drugs. Like the opiate issue is a huge problem in this country. Again, don't be so fast to assume that everybody that has an addiction has some sort of major childhood trauma, because even though that's the case, maybe even the majority of times, it's not always the case. But there's a lot of reasons why people go down that rabbit hole and become addicts to different things. And I think, unfortunately, it's a problem during the pandemic, too, because people are isolated from people for a long time. You're psychologically afraid. And again, I think that's why the vaccines and all these other things are so divisive nowadays, just because people are afraid and they don't know who to trust. They see evidence that they can't trust their own government. They see evidence that There's also counter evidence that, sometimes this may be helping some people survive, so they trust it. It's weighing the pros and cons like everything else in life. And I won't go down the whole pandemic rabbit hole, but I think at bare minimum, Republican, Democrat aside, I don't want to get into that. Our government could have handled their response to all of this a lot better and given people a lot better advice and been just straightforward and forthcoming with people instead of making fear-based reactions all of the time. So anybody who's been affected by this pandemic, my heart goes out to them. It's been rough on a lot of people, and I think we're going to see evidence of that in the future when our kids get older. That the fact that part of their childhoods had to be taken away by a pandemic, it sucks. I wrestle with it every day, and asking myself, did I make the right decision as a parent to isolate my kid from this or put them in that? And it's not easy for any of us. So I hope we all start going a little easier on each other, whether we're Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Independents, and maybe reflect a little bit after all of this is over that we all could have at least been a little bit more kind and respectful in our dialogue toward each other. What else do we have on here? Is a very London art. Lord and Arts is a very good channel. It would be up your alley. He's covered Delphi also. I'll take a look at it. Mrs. Allen might have had moments where she wondered about something, but again, denial is a factor. And imagine how it must feel to realize you're married to an alleged bridge guy. No excuse, but understandable. Yeah, but again, if he's still wearing those same types of jackets out there, I mean, boy, you hope that she didn't know something and just kept it from people for a long time, because rest assured, if she knew something and the prosecution can prove that as well, she better start spilling the beans, because that can literally in Indiana land you an accessory to murder charge. If you have information for a long period of time that somebody is involved in a crime like that, they will slap a murder accessory charge on your behind so fast it'll make your head spin in a case like this. So if she's out there and she knows anything or knew anything ahead of time, spill. That's my advice to Richard Allen's wife. If she knows or knew anything that she's not letting on, because they'll get to the bottom of it. I'm not accusing her of that or anything at all, but again, I agree with some people here. I find it very difficult. If that were my loved one, even wearing a basic outfit like that, that's typical of what he would usually wear anyway, by his own admission, and I see that video, you better believe, even with some denial, though, I'm gonna ask some questions in my own head and want somebody to vet that out so that I know that there's not a monster living in my own home. So we'll see. What else do we have? You may want to look in the case of Jordan Sofer. Yeah, a lot of people are saying that, and I actually have studied that case. I just haven't discussed it much yet because I want to get a little bit more familiar with it before I start making links to other cases. I made one video on the Evansdale case, and the only reason I did is because when I was a kid, I took my math SAT test when I was in 6th grade in a program in Illinois called the Talented and Gifted Program, because I was basically a genius mathematically. And I'm not saying that to brag. It's just what happened. And I started going down this rabbit hole of how the Delphi case, the dates on it, which is February 13th, 2017, and then if you do it backwards, that equals the exact date of the Evansdale murders. And, everything isn't like a Hollywood script. Like, serial killers aren't necessarily always out there saying, how can I trick the investigators with a date? But, things like this do happen to where these are types of signatures people might leave. But I wanted to calculate what the mathematical odds of two dates like that, both having a double child homicide, landing on those specific dates and identical dates reversed compared to any other date. And double child homicides in the United States are insanely rare. So for that to happen, multiple young girls, both found near, Cree abducted, things like that. And the similar MO. And then when I calculated the odds of those two dates popping up, it was like thousands to one. Okay. So coincidences do happen, but it's enough to where it's okay to ask questions about it. Like, wow, are these two cases, Evansdale and Delphi, potentially linked? And unfortunately, as tight-lipped as they have been in the Delphi case, they've been even more tight-lipped about what they do and don't have in the Evansdale case. And unfortunately, in the Evansdale case, I think the girls were in a more advanced stage of decomposition, making it more difficult to ascertain what happened and cause of death and things like that in that case. But they don't really tell the public much of anything. And the fact that that was another crime that was in broad daylight it's just disturbing. That's I think going to be a tough one to solve unless they have some sort of DNA or something over there and match it to somebody in Evansdale. What is my theory? Fostered a boyfriend, someone else. Oh, okay. She's asking at venue 3. I didn't know at venue 3 was in here. Interesting. That's somebody that I know very well that I've talked to quite a bit. Probably help you with the Jordan Sofer case, but tell you it's not connected to Richard Allen. At venue 3, how do you know that it's not connected to Richard Allen, just out of curiosity? Given that I've spoken to you quite a bit before and trust some things you say to me, I'd be curious to know how you know definitively it's not connected to Richard Allen at all. And you may be right, but since you mentioned that, some people have tried to link it. Okay, I'm just reading through some comments here. Well, seems they should have charged Keegan Klein with accessory. Now, here's the problem with that, Charles. If they can't prove that Keegan Klein's catfishing is why Richard Allen met them out there that day, then charging him with accessory might be a stretch, and there'd be plenty of reasonable doubt, I think, raised about that. Or maybe they are able to prove that, and maybe that's what got Keegan Klein to roll on Richard Allen, potentially. Think about that. That's a possibility as well. Not saying that's the case, but that's also a possibility. Just kind of thinking outside the box there. Okay. Anything else up here? And again, I'm going to cut it off here pretty soon, and don't want to go too much more than an hour here. How you doing, man? I'm on my launch. It was a crime of opportunity. Richard is a known alcoholic. Well, when you think about it, most crimes are a crime of opportunity on some level. You could have somebody catfish 2 girls, pre-facilitate a crime, and it would still potentially be a crime of opportunity because you happen to know that there's no other witnesses out there. It's secluded. So it doesn't necessarily have to be one or the other. You could have both things actually simultaneously be true. It'd be a crime of opportunity, but also premeditated. Any updates on Tony Klein? Unfortunately, no. I don't personally have any updates on him. Again, we know from interview transcripts with Keegan Klein that the FBI and prosecutors were really hammering home the point that they definitively felt somebody else in Klein's household besides Klein was accessing Anthony Schott's account or accounts. Is that where the name Anthony comes from? Anthony, Tony. Then we have another one that Keegan Klein admits that he made in a female name too. So there's numerous accounts, not just the Anthony Schatz. I think it was Emily Ann something or another was the other account that he was using on one of them. So this isn't just one account and one device. This is numerous devices, numerous people or multiple people logging in the same household. And there's definitely, whether that was involved with Delphi and Richard Allen or not, again, that's that's for investigators to sort through, and I hope that they have, because it's obvious to me that, and the FBI has said this, more than one person was accessing that Anthony Shots account, which I'm sure is a big part of the reason why Doug Carter and others have flat out stated they think there's likely other actors potentially involved. But, you know, the $1 million question is all the CSAM and catfishing stuff that that Keegan Kline did allegedly, or anybody else in that household, is any of that related to Delphi, or is it just one big crazy dumb coincidence? Very, very difficult for me personally to believe that's all a coincidence, but that's not for me to determine. That's for investigators to determine, and for law enforcement and prosecutors to determine. Let's more see. I'll have to go back and watch from the beginning. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you, Lakeside Justice. She says, I go back and forth from a crime of opportunity and lone wolf to a couple of people involved in plan. Well, there's certainly circumstantial and physical evidence for both cases to be made. I agree. And I think that's one of the reasons why people still continue to discuss this case so many years later, is the fact that there are so many potential avenues that are tangible, reasonable avenues for people to be investigating, and not just based on speculation, just things that we know about the case and about Kline's case, and, charges being taken off of his case because that he was, quote, negotiating with investigators about something. Whether or not that's related to the Richard Allen case, we don't know. But here's what we do know, and this is important, and I've stated this before. We know that investigators felt strongly enough that there was a potential connection between the Klines, or at least Keegan Kline, and Abby and Libby, to where when they revealed on that weird late night YouTube video, hey, when they revealed the Anthony Shots account to everybody, keep in mind the tip line that they asked for in that video for people to send information about the Anthony Shots account to was the Abby and Libby, I can't talk, I need some water. The Abby and Libby tip line specifically. Okay. They didn't say, hey, if you know anything about this Anthony Shots account, call Indiana State Police. They said use the Abby and Libby tip line. So they wanted that to be a specific part of the Abby and Libby investigation at bare minimum. And the fact that they asked the public to send that information to that specific Abby and Libby tip line, even though it was the Kline Anthony Shot stuff, I think that's revealing in a way. It kind of tips investigators' hands a little bit, that it shows you they at least consider the fact that Kline might have some involvement as very, very credible to them. Okay. Interesting though. Is there a court date set for Richard Allen? Yes. I think it was like originally in like March or something. Like, don't quote me on that. It's already been pushed back. I haven't been on the site to look what it is lately, so I don't want to put misinformation out there. You know what? Actually, I could look this up here real quick for you. Indiana Online Court Docket. What do we got here? And let me just type it in real quick, and then I'll let you know what it has for his case right now. Search cases, search by name, Allen, Richard. Okay, what does it say here? Let me open up the case file. I have to scroll down because there's a million pretrial things going on here. And motions. Okay, jury trial. Was supposed to be for March 30th, 2023. It just says rescheduled, and then it says 320. Yeah, it looks like right now jury trial scheduled for March 20th. Fully expect that to be pushed back. It looks like there's a hearing coming up on February 17th. See, a confidential order was issued on January 27th. The state's response to a petition filed on January 31st. So the defense has filed some sort of a petition that the state responded to on January 31st, 6 days ago. They're not going to tell us what that's about. And there's a hearing. It's probably just, asking for reduction of bond or something like that, which I don't think is going to happen personally. Anyway, I hope that answers your question. As of now, it says March 20th, but again, there's not a chance on this planet this case is going to start going to trial by March 20th. I would be the most shocked person on the face of the planet if that happens. Jacob Smith also wanted to say I'm a recently new subscriber and I'm enjoying your content. Thank you, Jacob. And I want everybody to keep in mind again, too, here, that I appreciate all the comments and the likes and things like that. But the bottom line is I created this channel to try and get tips, leads, anything I can, critical thinking ideas for investigators that are avenues to potentially pursue so that maybe, something comes of it. And again, it has led to a few tips that law enforcement actually has conducted interviews from my channel. And this is ultimately not about me or anybody else except this family and finding justice for them. And as I stated in my past live stream, a lot of us are parents, and that's kind of what we got into this case. A lot of us for originally is just that have these channels are to keep the spotlight on this so that we can get some of these monsters off the streets that do things like this to our children. It's sad and unfortunate that we live in a world where we have to even worry about these things. But thank you, Jacob. I appreciate it. Charlotte, I can't help but feel that Klein was the catalyst for this by providing an avenue for such contact, possibly then sold the details that someone picked up where he or they left off. I have to consider. Again, entirely possible. Just you hope that these people aren't out there filming disgusting things like what happened to these two girls. And probably there's a movie that I watched when I was younger with Nicolas Cage that just disturbs me to this day still. And there's not a lot of fiction in movies that bothers me when I watch it, but the movie 8mm deals with this sort of topic, and it's not something they ever show on cable anymore. It's out there, you can rent it and stuff like that. But if you ever want to watch a movie that deals with, taboo subjects like people filming inappropriate things and things like that. And in the movie Nicolas Cage, he's a private detective that hunts some sick people down that are doing these things to people. And boy, it's an intense movie. And I know it's called 8mm. It's something, it might be up some of your alleys. But if that kind of content or sort of thing bothers you, or watching a movie about that sort of subject matter, I would advise avoiding it, because it gets pretty nitty gritty, and Cage does a real good acting job in that movie of playing a detective who's hunting these kind of sick human beings down. It's an older movie from the 1990s, I believe. So if any of you want to watch that movie and kind of go down that rabbit hole, it's an interesting and disturbing film. Wouldn't it be great if Keegan Kline and Richard Allen both can get convicted and have to spend the rest of their lives as cellmates? I have no empathy for people who are filming certain disturbing things like Keegan Kline allegedly was. And if they're guilty, and again, innocent until proven guilty, but if they are both guilty of either of these things, I hope that they serve their just punishment, because the one thing that we should have zero tolerance for is anything that's exploiting children specifically. What else do we have here? And again, I'm only going to do a few more. At Venue 3, I plan to go and do court sketches on the next court day. I really got to go now. Take care, bro. Thank you at Venue 3. Again, you do some really interesting drawings. And I know you're a musician and very talented person. So I look forward to seeing your drawings from court when you are in court. And, he's an avid follower of my channel. And when this does go to court, if at Venue 3 is kind enough to share his courtroom drawings with us, I'll ask him permission to share those drawings here on my channel. I think that would be really neat. So if you watch the replay of this at Venue 3, please, I'd love to share your courtroom drawings when you make sketches. if you are able to get inside the courtroom for any of these hearings or trials. That'd be cool. Okay. Yeah, this as much as a bloody terrible coincidence. Poor girls and their poor mommies. Yeah, just really unfortunate. Boyfriend is the rumor here in Wabash. Interesting. So it sounds like there's some rumors going on. I'm just reading the comments. Anyhow, good stream. I'm looking forward to some more from you. Well done. My Rory says thank you. So I think I'm going to wrap this up here. It's been about an hour and 5 minutes. Thank you for the people that joined me. Again, just was touching base on who the real Richard Allen is, based on the fact that we know he seems to have some alcohol issues, and was he using that alcohol to cover up some secret desires or problems or things that were going on in his life that we didn't know about? So if you go back and watch the live stream, we discussed some of that earlier on. Again, thanks everybody for watching. Have a great day. And if any of you are at work, I hope that I got you an hour and 5 minutes closer to the end of your workday without having to stress too much. Have a great day, everybody. I'm going to end the stream here now. And if anybody has anything to say in the comments, or after the video, please stop by my page and tell me what you think, or if you have any thoughts on, who is the real Richard Allen, because we're starting to see a lot of evidence that there's kind of two sides to him. The private, allegedly alcoholic that his wife's taken him to the hospital in 2015 in the middle of the night for drinking, versus the innocent guy hanging out processing photos at CVS. Have a great day, everybody, and thank you, Teresa. Thank you for all the kind comments and support. And I'll do another live stream again soon. And again, I hope to in the future get some editing software and things on here so that I can pull up pages and other things that I'm discussing and make a little bit more of a polished presentation. But for now, the channel kind of is what it is, just in like a podcast and discussion format. So thanks for your support, everybody, and have a great day.